No, I'm sitting here now. We have enough to. Yeah, because the streaming for the YouTube, you have to speak into the microphone. Oh, now it's off. Now the mic's off. Just you. Well, I'll do the whole thing for everyone, even if they're right there. That's fine. Now the mic's off.
Are you recording the YouTube live stream?
I will be recording.
So we can watch it later.
Now it's on. But it's on. All right, you guys ready? Jake tells me no one's on, but I'll still do everything for the live stream. So welcome to your final capstone presentations. Well done for getting like all of this work done in what essentially is 4 days, because we're here for 8 days. And for anyone who's watching this, the GREEN program is an experiential learning opportunity for students to come and learn about sustainable energy in Iceland. And we've done crazy things like hike up mountains and bathe in geothermal rivers and go into the highlands. But to sum it all up, we've done a capstone project for sustainable innovation. I won't say much about it now, but I will introduce the first group that will give their presentation, the Green Gliders, which is Octavia, Hannah, Justin, Arlo, and Sonia. So, yeah, and just remember to speak into the microphone. Go for it. Okay, are we ready? Yeah. Okay.
Standing in front of the screen, so I'll stand.
Okay. So for our green program capstone project, we've titled our company the Green Gliders. I am Octavia, and I'm majoring in earth science and policy.
I'm Hannah, and I'm majoring in energy engineering.
I'm Sonia, and I'm majoring in meteorology.
I'm Justin. I'm majoring in atmospheric science and meteorology.
I'm Arlo, and I'm majoring in geography.
So our overarching theme is if there's anything that's green, it's this glider.
All right, so to start, the main problem that we're addressing with our company is the emissions from transportation, such as cars, trucks, and buses, and the fact that they're a primary source of air pollution in cities such as New York City. So a general globally statistic is that transport is responsible for approximately 24% of direct CO2 emissions, so it's about 1/4 of emissions globally. And almost all of the 3 to 4 million annual deaths from worldwide air pollution are directly related to fine particulate air pollution, or PM 2.5. If you don't know what it is, it's essentially just particulate matter that's 2.5 microns or less, and that's generally, it can be emitted through like combustion, or specifically in the context of our project, it can be emitted through like exhausts of vehicles, and they kind of infiltrate the lungs, and they're not good for breathing conditions at all. In New York City particularly, millions of residents live in areas where these concentrations from on-road transportation are higher than the state average. And this pollution significantly impacts the health and well-being of citizens in the communities, and they're generally linked to heart and lung disease and other sorts of complications with breathing. And this is a general map of the PM 2.5 average annual concentrations from on-road vehicles. You can kind of see the correlation between larger highways and concentrations in cities as if related to more rural areas. You can specifically see like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse have a slightly higher concentrations in those cities, but specifically New York City has much higher concentrations along those major highways and where the population is very large, where there's a lot of traffic and different emissions from vehicles.
So our solution to address some of these issues are using existing electric and renewable energy sourced bike infrastructure in New York City to develop a new lottery-based electric bike rental system, which we call the Green Gliders. This would encourage residents and tourists to use bikes instead of always driving. And we will do this by incentivizing riders with a type of lottery system. So like every 500 riders who rent a bike will win a $50 e-gift card, and there will also be bonus hours during rush hour or peak car usage to incentivize people more to use these bikes instead of driving their car in the city to prevent some CO2 emissions. And during these bonus hours, the frequency of the lottery will increase, like every 250 riders, or the winnings will double to incentivize people more to ride our Green Gliders.
So moving on to our take on the golden circle, the why is, of course, to erase emissions from cars and high concentration of air pollution in cities. Obviously, this assists in combating long-term effects such as climate change, as well as sort of eliminating the stigma surrounding public transport and bikes. Particularly in the United States, we're largely focused on car-centric infrastructure and culture. And it's kind of regarded as a status symbol to drive a car, which puts down the use of public transport and bikes. So we hope to help eliminate that. Every year, motor vehicles contribute approximately 11% of local fine particulate matter and 28% of the nitrogen oxide emissions. And how we will accomplish this is by encouraging the use of alternative forms of transportation in cities, such as our e-bikes, as well as lobbying to make city infrastructure more walkable, bikeable, and eco-friendly in general. So what this entails is, as Hannah just talked about, creating incentives for utilizing our bikes, such as cash prizes, membership rewards, and other social cohesive events.
So these are the 4 SDGs that we've sort of decided to focus our project around. So the first one is SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, which has a sub-goal that actually focuses on reducing the deaths from road traffic incidents. Then we have SDG 7, which is affordable and clean energy, which has a sub-goal that focuses on enhancing clean energy infrastructure, especially in marginalized communities like a big city like New York City. Then we have SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, which has a very similar sub-focus on just increasing accessibility to renewable types of transport. And then we have SDG 13, Climate Action, which focuses on communities being able to create cohesive climate action planning plans.
So for our sustainability complex, on the global scale, we plan to assist in the global atmospheric change by using these new renewable energy bikes, the e-bikes. And when this company is very successful, it can be used as a model for around the world. And then for the national level, the Biden-Harris administration plans to transition to completely to zero-emission vehicles by 2035 for the federal vehicle fleet. And then on the regional scale, New York will become the second state to mandate zero-emission vehicles by the year 2035, which is just behind California. And then on the city scale, which is where we plan to implement our company, so the New York City's Climate Action Council passed a plan to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 85% by the year 2050. And then on the community level, it will create a safer community environment with decreased vehicles on the road. So as Octavia was saying, it's less vehicles on the road. It'll be more safer for pedestrians. And then for the household, it will save money with the less car expenses, like you won't have to buy gas as often. And then for the individual, it will improve the health and well-being of all of New York's residents, as well as reduce the complications with air quality, which does induce sickness, so there will be less particulates and other things like Justin was discussing earlier in the air.
So this is our general business model that includes the key resources, partners and key stakeholders, the cost structure, key activities, types of intervention, channels, surplus, segments, value proposition, and revenue. This is just a general overview. We're going to be going into more detail on the following slides, so I'll just continue on to our key resources and activities. The main key resource, of course, is the bikes themselves. We plan to have them powered renewably through either local hydropower, solar resources, or other sources of sustainable and renewable energy. In comparison to city bikes, they actually only have about 20% of their fleet is electric, so we plan to go fully electric and power that renewably. We feel that will be more efficient for people to get places quickly. And we plan to have stations at various locations across the city where you can get the bikes kind of similar to city bike. And in terms of the money as a resource, we plan to get that through sponsors, so either through like local companies, maybe even green companies, smaller companies that sort of are more focused on the sustainability aspect that sort of fit our goals in sustainability, and other sorts of larger corporations that could help fund us. And also crowdfunding is a big thing, and that kind of fits into the social media platform. We plan to sort of build a social media platform with those ideas of sustainability. We know with all the increased concern about air pollution and our changing climate, we could definitely build a strong community with like-minded individuals that sort of support our project. And that kind of fits into how we plan to go with our activities by starting with beginning a social media campaign to gain public support and spread awareness about what we're doing. Crowdfunding will be used to fund the project from the public to help gain support with our project, and we plan to have our fares reinvested into improving bike and public transportation infrastructure later on once we sort of get the ground running and have a solid foundation for our project.
So key partners and stakeholders in our project are obviously the people and tourists in New York City. They suffer from underfunded and underdeveloped infrastructure with carbon emissions that pollute the air around them. So this would help with the greener transportation infrastructure, health benefits, and safety to the people using these bikes. And it's important that the people get excited about the bikes in New York City and want to use them and are excited about the lottery system, and the government of New York to help reduce the large car-centric infrastructure. And the bike-friendly framework is scarce across the metropolitan areas, so we plan to help to lobby for positive infrastructure changes and more of a shift towards public transportation in the government. And obviously our sponsors to help get the groundwork for the bikes, crowd-funded money, along with potential corporate sponsors. So we are a company that would provide a service to the citizens and tourists of New York for a minute-based fee, like a $1 fee initially, and then 25 cents additional a minute. And it's a way to incentivize New Yorkers to ride bikes and reduce their car usage. We would help to start eliminating the priority of car culture, especially in the United States and in large cities there. And we plan to spread our product primarily through just advertisements, billboard signage, and our main attack would be for social media and community events to get people excited about our product, and through word of mouth, with the new lottery system added, and 100% electric and renewable energy powered.
So moving on to segments, we want to create a business model that benefits both the community and the environment. So helping the citizens of New York that deal with poor living quality from both environmental and noise pollution. So this obviously benefits the environment, but also creates a more socially cohesive city that kind of encourages systems use, encouraging people to more interact with sustainable measures to help the environment. We kind of will hope to target people who are living in more urbanized areas who are both concerned about their health and the environment and give them power to change, as well as generating our revenue through the consumer perspective by charging for the bikes like other e-bikes and scooter companies that are already in existence. And lastly, our value proposition. Our social value proposition is, of course, helps to protect the environment and other effects such as climate change to reduce emissions from cars, as well as helping to incentivize people to use bikes instead of driving, eliminating that stigma against sustainable transportation that we've been talking about. Impact measures, obviously bringing in a number of new users, lowering amounts of emission above New York City. Additional net revenue from bikes can be showcased in our advertisements, social media, and websites. And as well as our customer value proposition, obviously biking is a more healthy method of transportation. So this can be seen through decreased pollution in the air, as well as benefits in cardiovascular health, safer traffic control, and a more reliable source of transportation in general.
So this is our cost structure, and as our business grows, we will plan to invest in more ambitious goals, but when we first launch our business, we want to use the funds that we get from like crowdfunding and our sponsors to build a really strong base. So we want to make sure that we have like our bike fleet like completely set. We want to make sure that we have money to fund these incentives. We want to make sure that like we've reached enough to build a strong community that supports our initiatives. And then afterwards, once we feel like we have a strong community and a strong usage base, we can start funneling some of the money that we get from that $1 fee, 25 cents a minute, towards lobbying for better bike lanes and creating larger prizes and more bonus hours, how Hannah mentioned earlier, to just incentivize ridership a little bit more. And then this is sort of a breakdown of how we might plan to use our revenue. So we will be using both the income from the fees from the bikes and from the crowdfunding and from the sponsors to cover the cost of the lottery winnings, and just sort of like basing maybe perhaps our revenue off of what City Bike currently makes is around $58 million per year. And City completely funds their bike fleet, but we plan to, again, also source additional funding from crowdfunding or social media and the lottery. So we might do like a breakdown of 60% of our money comes from our sponsors, 30% comes from crowdfunding, and then 10% comes from reinvesting the money that we get from the lottery back into the lottery system.
So moving on to surplus, we will use all of our profit to basically fix the current bikes in the city, but more so also along the lines of renovating the bike lanes and making them safer. So actually having like a good bike lane on the side of the road as opposed to just like a little area like how they currently have in New York City. And then along with the lottery system, we will have the bonus hours, as we've all been saying, which will consist of higher prizes and things like that. But then we'll also add a membership or rewards account, which is basically if you pay X amount, you can ride however many times you want for a week or a month or something along those lines. And then after the bikes, we will move to other modes of transportation, so like bettering the bus lanes as well, and then also the subway systems, and then overall the making green Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Oh, okay, thank you. So as our conclusion, we want our company, the Green Gliders, with the help of the lottery system, to encourage people to transition from their state of mind of always driving cars to other modes of transportation, but specifically our bikes. But then when this is implemented, this will reduce the emissions of the harmful air pollutants into the air, which will increase air quality and the overall well-being of everyone in the city, but also will assist the long-term assist in the reduction of the long-term climate change impacts, such as the CO2 in the air. And then our excess profits will also improve the existing infrastructure already in the city. And then after our bikes, we will move to improving other forms of transportation and further contribute to the well-being of our residents. And then when our project is successful, other cities around the world and in other countries can also adopt our company and use it for their own country and their city. Okay. Questions?
Great presentation. Thank you so much. My first question, I guess you kind of answered, is this already available in New York? You said yes with city bikes, but like, how exactly are you guys different?
I can start. Of course, City Bikes is already in New York City, and they're kind of expanding. So I guess in a way, it's competition, but at the same time, I wouldn't want our company to sort of be competing with others as we're trying to do it for a greater good of sustainability. I'd say the main way we're different is, as I mentioned, only 20% of City Bike is powered electrically. We plan to have that fully electric, so it's a more quick form of transportation, and also have that powered renewably. Through local sorts of solar panels and hydropower facilities. And yeah, does anyone else?
And the lottery bonus too, to like really incentivize riders. Like City Bike is more of like convenience for people who like already like riding, but the lottery system I think would incentivize more ridership than City Bikes.
Also, having just a fully electric fleet assists people who can't necessarily use like a regular bike for long periods of time. So like electrically assisted bikes can help people with like, say, disabilities. They can't really use a bike for a long time. They don't have like the same cardiovascular health. Electric bikes really help them be able to like sustain that mode of transportation.
So I have a question about like the money side of it. So how do you see yourself starting? And also, do you see yourselves like as being a complete like competitor against City Bikes, or like working alongside them? Because like they are currently, I believe, like partially funded by the city as well, and like Citibank is like a sponsor of them. So how do you see yourself like starting like the initial financial part of that?
I can say, I think I wouldn't really want, as I mentioned, it to be more of a competition. One main thing is that even though we did say we're starting in New York City, it'd be also a good idea to travel to other cities, as many other cities may not have the same City Bike or actually City Bikes are only concentrated in New York. But specifically to start, I think it'd be a good opportunity to sort of work together with them to sort of get it running, because they definitely already have sort of the solid infrastructure for electric or some partial electric bikes, so that could definitely help us. We could sort of work together in a way to sort of make it more renewable and sort of make it more reliable across the city for others to use.
And we were just planning on like getting our feet off the ground with like how we talked about our social media advertising and just like community outreach events, things like that, just like using like lower cost forms of advertising to get our name out there.
Thank you. Good presentation. Going back to the charging of the e-bikes, how would you ensure that it is sustainable energy that is being used for the bikes?
So I think to ensure sustainable energy, we would really prioritize like where we're getting the energy from and use like either solar panels like on the bikes and on the infrastructure itself, like Justin was saying, or some type of like hydroelectric power that New York City has access to that we would make sure they were powered with, kind of keeping that sustainability as a priority for our gliders.
So I think we briefly mentioned like having little stations around the city where you could park the bikes. I think that would be along with like the hydropower side of it. So we would park our bikes like near like the hydropower and eventually we'll have to, we would eventually have to figure out a way to like use that power to charge our bikes. But I think that would probably be how we would use the hydropower side of it.
I also think, I don't know if this has ever really been implemented, but the fact that people are pedaling and sort of creating a movement there could definitely be a source of potentially creating more energy and powering it. I'm not entirely sure how that could work, but down the future, that could definitely be an interesting way to potentially sort of have people powering the bikes or kind of charging the battery as they're riding away.
I was curious as to your decision on the fee structure. So when you look at, it was I believe, initial fee cost of $1 and then 25 cents per minute. Did you look into how that compares to other sources of transportation in the city, and what did you learn?
Yeah, so we kind of were researching our fee structure based on other like electric bikes, like city bikes or spin bikes like we have at State College. And it was very similar to the other costs of those bikes. And other types of transportation is a little bit cheaper than other transportation in New York City, like the subways or the buses, and especially cheaper than like the tolls with driving. There's a lot of tolls like across different intersections in the city. So that would definitely be like a more cost effective option for some people to bike instead of driving or on a bus or something like that. So it is close to other electric bikes, but a little bit cheaper than other transportation in the city.
Also, along with our bonus hours, we thought about different ways that we could implement these bonus hours. But one of the things could be like, for like this hour on this day, the price would be reduced by X amount or something like that. Or like the initial fee will get waived and you just have to pay 25 cents per minute or something like that. But yeah.
Thank you. I have one more question, and that is, so New York City is a really large city, but I wanted to know like how large you guys would need to make your fleet for you guys to have an impact, and what kind of impact that would be.
Yeah, so I think initially, just a way to sort of get things running we could sort of use that social media campaign to start an initial fleet. I'm not sure exact numbers, but have at least, maybe a couple dozen stations in a certain like branch of New York, and then eventually expand to different like sub neighborhoods in New York. Eventually, have maybe a couple hundred stations eventually, and sort of just gradually make our way up to sort of get there. Once we get our word out and start to get more funding, we could definitely expand more. And then hopefully eventually sort of use it as a model for other cities to not only concentrate on New York, because of course New York has very harsh impacts with air pollution in comparison to a lot of other cities, but many other cities still see like very similar effects, no matter the size really. So it could definitely be a good model for other cities to eventually implement and expand upon.
Okay, thank you, Green Gliders. Cool. And next up is Fresh for Less with Daniel, Hannah, Alicia, and Olivia.
All right, hi, I'm Olivia Neal, and I am a geography student.
I'm Alicia Naik, and I'm a material science and engineering student.
I'm Hannah Hayes, and I'm a geosciences student.
And I'm Danielle Dedeau, and I'm a geography student as well.
And this is our business idea, Fresh for Less, an innovative approach to sustainability in which we are trying to get fresh and healthy food into food deserts while also producing biofuel as a sustainable energy source.
So food deserts in low-income neighborhoods are a huge problem in the United States. But what if it didn't have to be? What if you could provide subsidized and pay what you can groceries to those neighborhoods in a sustainable way? Our team wants to use revenue from advertisements as one way to provide this service year-round. To do this in a sustainable way, we also want to partner with biofuel companies that will take our food waste and compost it and turn it into fuel. This in turn can heat our store while also generating a small portion of profits. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is a sustainable way to provide healthy and fresh foods for food deserts and low-income neighborhoods. We're going to do this by building partnerships with local governments and institutions that will provide funding to build infrastructure and any materials that we need. And we're also going to come up with ways on how to collect that waste. We're doing this to make food more accessible to those low-income homes and while also decreasing food waste, while also helping residents maintain a steady income by not having to spend so much money on their produce.
Okay, so this is our business model, and we're gonna go over all this. But to keep it short, we said we want to use food waste to produce energy for a store, and we're gonna use donations from regional farmers, large-scale grocery stores, and large companies to provide food. And then we're also and then the value from this, it's going to increase the health of the community so they have access to better options, and it's also going to reduce food waste in the area.
So we talked a lot about our plan, but now we're going to go into some definitions to make sure we're all on the same page. So as you can see here, the definition of a food desert is an impoverished area where residents lack access to healthy foods. This can be in rural or more urban areas, and there are a ton of socioeconomic factors that contribute to a place being a food desert. So in these areas, it's really hard for people to gain foods that are essential to having a healthy diet. And this can include things such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, dairy, meat, fish, and more. And this is also, there are a different variety of reasons for why this can be. The products may be too expensive for the residents in the area, the products may be hard to come by, or there may be few reliable forms of transportation to the stores that would sell those products. So there are a lot of health impacts when you live in a food desert. As you can see in our apple, there are a ton, way too many to name during this time. But a brief overview is that there's an increased risk of obesity, poor mental health, and increased risk of multiple illnesses in general.
So biofuel, if you don't know, is any fuel that comes from biomass. So the specific form of biofuel that we are looking at that uses food and agricultural waste is called biomass gasification. And basically it uses a mixture of heat, oxygen, and steam to turn biomass into fuel. And what we can do, we can take the food waste from grocery stores, food waste that we generate, food waste from the community, and we can create a compost system, and we can use this food waste, and we can partner with companies that do make biofuel, and they can make it into biofuel, and we would get that biofuel back to power the storefront. And why biofuel? So food waste is a huge contributor to climate change, and it's a growing problem around the world. So nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted, even though a large majority of the population is considered food insecure. And biomass is better than fossil fuels because fossil fuels, as we all know, are unsustainable in the long run. So biomass is actually considered a renewable energy source.
So this is a little infographic about how the system is considered to be a closed loop system. So first you would take the organic waste produced and someone would come and collect that waste. They would then take it to a facility that does a process called anaerobic digestion. It essentially takes bacteria that breaks down that biodegradable material in a system where there's no oxygen. Then you use gasification and you add that heat, steam, and oxygen, and you turn it into natural gas. And then you can inject that back into the grid, which can then be used for fuel, electricity, and heat for your homes. So more about biomass gasification. It's a process called fluidization where you feed semi-dry food into a cooking pot where it passes through hot bubbling substances that converts it into the fuel gas that we talked about, which is called syngas. It's essentially a synthetic gas that's a mixture of hydrogen, methane, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide, which is then able to be used to generate heat and power. This process is also considered to be carbon neutral since it kind of mimics plants and how they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They essentially recycle it. And because it offsets carbon dioxide released by producing hydrogen through the biomass gasification, you end up having low net greenhouse gas emissions.
So like any system, this has a lot of pros and cons dealing with the environmental and ethical side of things. So for our pros, we are providing food, including produce, dairy, and other healthy options for the low-income neighborhoods that will increase their quality of life, have healthier lives, longevity. It is more environmentally sustainable than the alternative. And the U.S. has an abundance of biomass, up to 1 million dry tons that are available. But cons are that it does produce some toxic emissions, but far less than fossil fuels, and it also has a very high cost of production.
So the Sustainable Development Goals that this relates to is 2 for zero hunger, because we're trying to provide affordable options to communities who don't have access to food. 3, good health and well-being. We're trying to get them produce, things that they normally wouldn't have access to that they need to kind of reduce the illnesses and impacts of not having access to that. 11 and 12, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. Those kind of go together in that we're creating a closed system, and we're using the food waste that we generate to provide fuel. And then climate action, because food waste is such a huge contributor to climate change.
This is a little breakdown of our cost structure. So we're going to need about $300,000 for startup costs for the first 3 months. This includes salary for employees and also benefits for them as well. After that, every month we're going to need roughly about $20,000 for operational costs, such as paying bills and, again, salaries for our employees. Any surplus that we have will be put back into the store for more inventory, more produce, more dry foods, cans. If we have more profits, we'll use that to increase the salary for our employees. And as for our revenue, we're going to get a lot of revenue from advertisements that we're going to place on our products. And we're also going to have revenue coming from how much customers are able to pay at that moment. It doesn't have to be a lot, but whatever they can provide.
So now we're going to talk about our launch location and why we chose it. So for Fresh for Less, we wanted to start with Memphis, Tennessee, because of a bunch of different reasons. Reason 1 being that it's actually a big food desert location. So Memphis, Tennessee actually has the highest percentage of people living in food deserts compared to any other large metro area in the United States. And a large sum of the population is low income and lives either half a mile to a mile away from the closest urban grocery store, or 10 miles to 20 miles from the closest rural grocery store. And those grocery stores that I'm mentioning right now, they're not like your giant supermarkets where you can buy pretty much anything. They're just stores that at least provide what you would need to live like a healthy life. So produce, some meat, and basic cooking supplies. Our next reason is food donation and selling rules. So currently there are no federal laws regulating date labels for food products besides infant formula. That means it's up to each state to decide what the rule is for date labels. And some states have really strict rules that require manufacturers to print expiration dates on their products. Let's say a product expires way before it actually does go bad. And additionally, those same states with the early expiration dates will often force grocery stores and food distributors and even like donation centers to throw out perfectly good food instead of putting them to use. However, Tennessee is one of the few states that do not require food products to contain date labels. This allows us to keep products on our shelves for longer, reducing the amount of food waste that our company produces at the distribution and marketing phase of the food supply chain. And since the products will be pay what you can, but within a certain range, we'll be able to continuously make money while not breaking anyone's bank. so we can always provide food that people are able to afford and that's healthy for them. And naturally, anything that we find that is unsafe for human consumption or just expired, it'll go towards our effort to create, use, and supply others with biofuel. And then our last reason is that it has easy access to local farms. So sometimes there are instances where farmers have a bunch of excess produce. Because Tennessee is like 40% farmland, there's a big chance of this happening. And they have a lot of like big commodities for Tennessee, or just a bunch of things that you need for a balanced diet. So by partnering with a bunch of farmers, we're able to take their excess produce, sell it in our store, and anything that goes bad or they think people might not want to buy it because it doesn't look pretty, we can send it to be composted and made to biofuel.
So next, our funding. There are a couple of grants that we would be able to apply to, including in the city of Memphis. There is a strategic community development fund, which would be perfect for our type of organization, as it is one that aims to benefit low to moderate income persons within the Memphis area, as well as the EPA has a few environmental education grants, which we could also apply to for this. And also, we would like to pair with local companies that would donate to our organization, and they would be able to receive tax breaks in return for this, as well as pairing with the biofuel companies that we will give our waste to. Lastly, we would like to advertise local businesses and brands that we would be putting their advertisements on our food products in order to subsidize the cost of these grocery products. Other resources, we want to pair with local nonprofits that would be aiming to help with the local homeless community as well as low-income community, as we are interested in staffing a lot of unhoused people as well as low-income persons in the area, in which there might be some other legal hoops to go through in order to provide legal employment. So we would be able to merge with a couple of these great other nonprofits in the area. Lastly, our sustainability complex. There's not really much on the global or state level for us, but we are going to be pairing with these farmers in the region. So that's why it can be regional, and then city, we aiming to work with the city of Memphis down to the community and neighborhood. We would like to work in these low-income food desert neighborhoods, and then households and individuals we would like to staff or help supply a better food source or quality of life. And here are all of our links that we used. And thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you guys for the lovely presentation. I do have a few questions. My first one was, will you consider what types of things you're advertising for example, like ethical products and services? And another question is promoting consumerism a sustainable thing?
Well, we would have to we want to mainly work with local businesses first before spreading out and promoting businesses that might be very geographically distant from our store, specifically the one that we would like to launch in Memphis. And yes, obviously consumerism is not great. We talked the other day about being the lesser of two evils. I would say that no human activity is ever going to be completely sustainable or environmentally friendly. Consumerism is not the best, especially in America, but if we can use it to give back to these lower income neighborhoods, I think it would be worth it, at least sustainable for a decent amount of time, more than other consumerism.
Additionally, our target group for our grocery store is people who would be contributing the least to consumerism, because these are people who can barely afford necessities like healthy foods. So even though consumerism on the scale of the entire United States is often a bad thing, you can't exactly go without buying food or eating food for that matter, since we are human. But the people who we're aiming to help, we want to make sure that they can at least live to sort of like I guess, contribute to society, but also not have to live like a miserable life of poor health and poor mental health.
So I'm gonna ask a second question because you kind of answered my second question, which is like, who is your target? Like, who can shop at your store? Is it everyone in the community? Are you targeting specific people? But my question comes up with like helping low income areas. Will people want to advertise at your store? And maybe how could you incentivize them to advertise at your store?
So, because it's pay what you can within a range, like we're definitely not going to be making our prices so low that every time someone comes in our store, we are losing way more money than we could ever gain. Our goal is to keep our lights on and to keep food on other people's table, not exactly like get rich quick and break other people's banks. So, and as for incentive, these local communities and other businesses, they will be gaining money through like advertisements, and also like because it's a range and it's just pay what you can, we like to keep it open for everyone, but it's going to be specifically located within those food deserts. So we're likely going to see mostly the people who can't afford it because other people have closer options to shop with.
As for incentives, like why would advertisements want to put their ads there? Because we're in a smaller community, small businesses will be more willing to put their advertisements into it. It'll kind of be like communities helping out each other. So it could be like a nail store, they're promoting that they open a new nail store, and then customers would go there. If they're doing like a real estate, like someone's selling a house or buying a house, it could be like a lawyer. It doesn't have to be like products, it could be anything.
What I was going to say as well is obviously why would you want to advertise mainly in a low-income area? So obviously the advertising, as we said, isn't going to be the entirety of our funding. We want to apply to other funding sources like grants, as well as the big corporations in the area we'd like to work with to receive donations. So I don't think all of the advertising would be the whole thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So, like, currently now, a lot of grocery stores produce a lot of food waste because there are many products that can't be sold at the end of the day. And you're working towards creating a grocery store where some of these products that would have been thrown away can still be sold, or longer, the ones that like they haven't like expired yet, but they're still good. Do you see like kind of like a competition between generating biofuels from the food waste that would be there, and also in this competing idea of like trying to get as much food out there that's still good? Like, do you see the idea there? Yeah.
So essentially we're going to use biofuel as like a last resort. Once that's like, we're going to turn the food that we cannot sell at all, if it's definitely gone bad, whatever, then we're going to compost that and sell it into biofuel. Our main focus here is to get as much food out as possible, and whatever's left that we can't sell at all, then we turn that into biofuel.
Yeah, and again, the reason why we chose Tennessee was because the products that we do have, we have a chance to keep them on the shelf longer, but that doesn't mean we're going to keep them on the shelf for longer than they really should be. So we're able to potentially sell more that way, but we're also like, we have the option to throw anything in our compost bin that we know is going bad and no one can like no longer eat, and then that gets turned to biofuel.
Thank you. Now, regarding the biomass and the biofuel production, will you be creating these installations for the biofuel production, or will you be basically contracting someone, an already existing place for that?
So there's a company, it wasn't the biggest, called REG that we can partner with that our main focus here is to just partner and contract and kind of supply the compost and biomass to those companies that we can then allow heat to be put back into our store, and then also get a little bit of profits from them as well.
Great presentation. I love a holistic approach to sustainability. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Justin, Hannah, and Eleanor with Lion Drop. Ooh. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We're good. Hello, everyone. We are here to present our company. We are here to present our company, Lion Drop. I'm Justin. I'm a material science student. Should we just restart?
Yeah. Are you Jake? No.
This is a long phone.
Yeah, this person's been really waiting for a phone call. Just dial tone. Hello. We are here to present our idea for our sustainable company, Lion Drop. My name is Justin. I am a material science student.
My name is Hannah. I'm studying energy and mineral engineering.
And my name is Eleanor. I am a marine biology major.
Lithium is a valuable mineral found in many batteries. It's used as the cathode material in lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are replacing lead-acid batteries as the most popular choice for consumer and industrial batteries. So you can find lithium-ion batteries in your phone, in other consumer electronics, as well as in electrical vehicles, industrial batteries, and they're also used in renewable energy producers to store the energy that is produced by renewable sources. However, we need a lot more lithium in order to produce more electric vehicles and to produce more renewable energy. Currently, only around less than 5% in the US of lithium is recycled. And so if we recycle more lithium, this will provide a more closed loop recycling lithium supply chain. So we're proposing a business that will be that will link community and consumer sources of lithium-ion batteries to recycling facilities. We will do this by being a transportation service that transports batteries from community drop-off locations to recycling facilities across the US.
So a little more into the background of why and lithium requirements in mining. So lithium requirements for batteries are expected to grow 30-fold within the next 10 years, and then 100-fold by 2050 compared to 2020. This is not sustainable for the future of lithium-ion battery requirements, especially in the EV market. There is only an estimated 22 million tons of lithium in reserves in mines in Earth. And this is capable of supporting the market for only 30 years. This number is subject to change, as 10 years ago, these estimates of lithium reserves were much lower. So as mines continue to open, these reserves can open more. However, we want to prevent the mining of new lithium because it is detrimental to many local water sources as well as the environment in general. Lithium mining requires flooding out low-lying salt plains that are highly concentrated, especially in South America, in what's called the lithium triangle. In these areas, communities around the lithium mines are seeing serious lack of water sources and clean water in their area. It's quite detrimental to those communities. Cost of lithium, as well, of recycling lithium as well, is quite competitive when compared to mining it. So there should be an incentive for recycling this valuable mineral, sometimes called white gold, compared to mining new lithium. And then showing there, seeing why this battery use will grow so much is that the expected EV market share will explode within the next 20 years, up to expected to be more than 70% by 2040. And then battery waste. In America, 3 billion batteries are thrown away every year. This is an insane amount of electronic waste. This is expected to be around 180,000 tons of batteries, based on the amount that are lithium ion typically, and the amount of lithium that is in a battery. This can be up to 6,000 tons of lithium improperly disposed of each year, which, if recycled, could have been making more than 750,000 car batteries a year. Additionally, battery waste can leak toxic chemicals such as that are within, such as lithium, cadmium, nickel, lead, mercury, cobalt, and more. These are toxic and can get into waterways and into soil, which is pretty bad for the communities around there. You don't want your drinking water to be contaminated with these heavy and toxic metals. As Anna said, currently recycling rates are definitely not high enough to meet future demand, with being less than 5% in the US and less than 1% worldwide.
So recycling lithium is necessary to meet future lithium demands and to mitigate the risks associated with mining lithium. There are currently 32 facilities globally that will recycle lithium, and 8 of those are in the US. There are 2 different processes to recycle lithium. There's a hydrometallurgy process and a pyrometallurgy process. They're both fairly similar, but hydrometallurgy is preferred because it has lower trade-offs. So this outlines the hydrometallurgy process of recycling lithium from lithium-ion batteries. It begins with battery collection, and then those batteries are then sent through a pre-treatment process. This begins by discharging the batteries by submersing them in sodium chloride, and this makes the battery safe to handle and reduces any electric charge that is still being held in that battery. Next, they are mechanically size reduced through crushing processes using conventional crushing techniques, and then they undergo pyrolysis, which is the heating of a material in the absence of oxygen, and this is done to separate the minerals in the cathode, so it's lithium, cobalt, other metals like that, from the carbon and the aluminum foil that's used to separate components in a battery. After this, the material undergoes inorganic acid leaching using hydrogen chloride. This is done in a leaching column that uses gravity to percolate the leachate through that material. And this has a leaching rate of 99% for cobalt and around 97% for lithium. However, cobalt and lithium leach out together along with other minerals, so they then have to undergo separation in order to make products that can then be resold back to producers. So first, this means precipitation and removal of aluminum, iron, and copper. They then undergo solvent extraction, which removes any remaining copper, as well as the manganese, cobalt, and nickel that is in that battery. And then finally, using sodium carbonate, we can precipitate out the lithium. This has an efficiency of around 52 to 67%, which is fairly high for hydrometallurgy processes.
And now going on to what our business will be able to do in the process, and processes that we will be able to go operate through. So drop-offs. First, community members will be able to safely drop off lithium-ion batteries at community areas like libraries, post offices, community centers, and more. From there, we will then pick them up from the drop-off locations, as well as businesses that have large amounts of batteries just sitting around that they want to get rid of can order bulk pickup of these batteries for a charge. We are then transporting these lithium-ion batteries to regional recycling facilities, and then there we're delivering them for them to be recycled to produce new raw battery materials.
Our business will contribute to industry innovation and infrastructure by expanding the lithium recycling infrastructure that exists in the US. It is a growing business, and we hope to be a part of that. We also contribute to responsible consumption and production because we are progressing towards a circular supply chain for lithium demand in the US, which will decrease our reliance on lithium imports, which are very expensive. We will also build sustainable cities and communities by decreasing the amount of hazardous waste that ends up in community landfills. And ultimately, this all accumulates with climate action. We will be making lithium supply more accessible, which in turn makes electric vehicles less expensive and more accessible for people to purchase. We also indirectly affect life on land and life below water because we will be recycling lithium, which will reduce reliance on mining, which it can be environmentally cause environmental degradation. Our business spans a wide scope. So at the individual level, we will help individuals have better waste disposal techniques. And then at a household level, this will reduce environmental footprints. In the community that we operate in, which we will begin with Birmingham, Alabama, we will create job opportunities, and this will ultimately contribute to the local economy at a city scale. Regionally, we will facilitate proper waste management because there will be less hazardous material ending up in community landfills. And nationally, we will help produce a better supply of lithium through recycling, which will increase the U.S.'s lithium independency and reduce our reliance on lithium imports. Currently, the U.S. only produces 1% of global lithium, so if we hope to increase our amount of electrical vehicles, recycling lithium is a must. And then globally, we will contribute to lower global emissions because we will help contribute to increasing the electrical vehicle market.
All right, so a little background on the U.S. federal laws regarding recycling batteries. The U.S. has two main acts currently that dictate battery recycling. One of them is called the Rechargeable Battery Act, which requires producers to label batteries about and how to recycle them properly, as well as it outlines regulations for transport and collection of batteries, and it expands funding towards collection programs such as nonprofit organizations and city recycling programs, etc. The Mercury-Containing Battery Act, it limits the sale for mercury-containing batteries in an attempt to phase them out of use, which is really hazardous. And as you can see, there's not a lot of regulations regarding the recycling of batteries currently. Because of this, states are allowed to dictate their own laws. Only about half of the U.S. Has state-dictated laws regarding battery recycling, and Alabama is not one of them. Alabama, for those who don't know, is a southeastern United state. It is, and our site location is going to be the capital of Alabama, Birmingham. So Birmingham currently lacks a city recycling program, and most of their unrecycled waste goes into landfills. Alabama is currently one of the most poor states in the U.S., the top 10 poorest states, so they have a lot of room for potential economic growth. And they are also a major automobile hub in the southeastern United States, and they supply as much as 1/3 of jobs in the automobile industry. So what do we need to get off on our feet? Our key resources are transportation. We need vehicles to transport our services and collect batteries from the public. We need infrastructure, which is land, buildings to support like hub bases and drop-off location sources so people can, drop off their batteries. We need workers, staff and professionals to run behind the scenes, and we need partnerships with local governments and recycling facilities. Our key activities, we are going to have a system set up. We set up the system for collecting batteries from the public, which includes like the transportation, the loans, the infrastructure. We need advertising to become known throughout the city or cities. we need partnerships, which are setting up relations with local governments, recycling facilities again, and other organizations that help with battery recycling. And then we will provide educational resources, since education regarding battery recycling throughout the U.S. is rather low.
So looking at our cost structure, the things that we're going to need to be paying for to operate the business, primarily staff. We're going to have to hiring staff to be drivers, operate facilities, and operate base hubs. We have buildings we'll need to be investing or renting in buildings to operate businesses in. We'll have a transport fleet. We'll have a fleet of vehicles to be taking care of moving batteries to and from drop-off locations and recycling facilities, and then we will need to pay for the materials to build and construct drop-off locations to deposit battery waste. Some of the interventions that we'll be intervening with. Transport, so as we said, we'll be transporting these batteries to and from recycling facilities. Collection, we'll be collecting these used batteries from the public, and then access, that's our primary goal, is to expand access of the capability to have clean recycling for toxic battery waste that many communities don't have, and our focus is to target underfunded communities that might not be able to, someone might not be able to go out and recycle batteries safely. Right. And then partners and key stakeholders. So we will be operating as a nonprofit. So our primary source of our primary partners will be with city governments. So we will be intended to be working with city governments to have contracts with them that would like to improve their recycling capabilities. We'll also have donors, donors who do want to lend money towards the cause. We'll have our key partners are also with recycling facilities, the ability, those who will buy the feedstock and the bulk battery material for recycling, and then community locations, such as I said, libraries, post offices, community centers that will facilitate drop-off.
All right, so our channels, or how our customers will be able to find out about us, reach out and reach out. So again, we're going to need advertising, so they could find out about our business through local advertisement. We would create a social media platform, such as a website, for people to find out about us through the internet. Our partners would potentially be able to spread the word through them. And in the community, with our educational programs, we would be providing advertisement through that too.
Our main beneficiaries are communities that lack strong recycling programs, so these tend to be underfunded communities. And our customers will be city governments that contract with us to remove hazardous waste from their communities, as well as recycling facilities that pay us to take the lithium batteries and then profit off of them once they have refined the lithium into a sellable product.
And then what value do we bring as a company? So when for those who are benefiting the results of the company, our main goal is equity in recycling, being able to expand capabilities for those who might not be able to already, compared to wealthier communities that have systems set up and that are in place. We'll also have the value for our customers, which are for the cities, our cleaner cities, and then for the recycling facilities is the feedstock and the materials that they use to generate new lithium. We'll measure this by amount of batteries cycled, the contracts that we received, both in number and in value.
Our revenue stream is split between primary and secondary sources. So our primary comes from private contracts with both cities and with recycling facilities. So with cities, as I said before, they will pay us to take that waste off of their hands, and then the facilities will pay us to provide them with that waste that they can then profit off of. Our secondary revenue will come from donations, grants, and subsidies where applicable. And then any surplus that we get will be reinvested back into our company to expand, since we'll be a nonprofit organization. Some considerations focus on the environmental trade-offs that are associated with recycling. So whenever we gather this waste, we will be collecting hazardous waste in public areas, which does pose safety risks. However, these risks are preferable to sending these batteries into landfills. Conventionally, transportation businesses contribute large vehicular emissions to the atmosphere. However, our fleet will be electric, so we can mitigate that risk. And as well, recycling batteries produces large emissions and does create waste that does need to be landfilled. However, this waste is a lot less than if the whole battery ended up in a landfill. So this is a preferred trade-off as well.
All right, so is our project feasible? So there are a lot of factors that you have to consider when, starting a business, and specifically a sustainable business. So I'll start off by saying that other organizations have worked towards similar goals. Specifically in Alabama, there's the Alabama Environmental Council, who also collects batteries. They're a nonprofit organization. However, they don't have any public outposts or public outposts or educational opportunities. There are things to consider, however, like politics. Will cities and businesses be expected to cooperate with us? That's something that's really up to them. As well as community participation, we're expecting people to recycle out of the goodness out of their hearts. So. Thank you.
Yeah, is there any questions? And then some sources.
Thank you for your presentation. So I have a question for you. So you talk there's 38 facilities in the world that do this. So why is this, and there's 8 in the US? Why is no one doing this right now, or what makes you different than them?
So there are companies that are out there to provide the capability to recycle batteries. For one, there's a company called Serba Solutions that allows you to ship your batteries. That is not a locally centered organization. They're also only operate out of Arizona and Michigan. They charge the person who has the batteries recycling quite a high fees, like $45 to send a box that's less than 10 pounds. So our focus is for communities, underfunded communities, where recycling should be free. It should not charge, no one should have to pay to be able to get rid of toxic batteries that are in their household. And that's how we differentiate ourselves from them. Yep.
Of the 8 that are in the US, 5 have been built in the past 5 years. So this is definitely a new up and coming industry.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. I have a question about how long you guys would need to operate, or how much you would need to collect for you guys to have a substantial impact. Did you consider that?
Yes. So looking at local recycling rates and U.S. recycling rates, with the amount of batteries that are thrown out per year, it was across the whole U.S. It was around 180,000 tons of batteries. I think our ideal amount would be to significantly reduce the amount of battery waste in landfills. Hard to put a specific number on that because we don't quite understand what the current number of battery waste is in Alabama, especially Birmingham. However, I think we would need to operate long enough that we can get through multiple contracts with both cities and recycling facilities to keep operating our business.
I actually have a couple of questions. The first one is, why did you target the state of Alabama? Because there could be some states where the policy is easier in terms of the battery recycling, and in terms also of the installations of the places where they recycle. So why Alabama and not another state?
So we were initially targeting underfunded communities, and since Alabama is like a relatively poor state, we decided that, or we looked into it and saw that they didn't have much recycling capabilities, and we thought that like if you have to start somewhere, start where like the problem is worse, so other communities can learn from it as well.
And then our goal wouldn't be just to be in Alabama. We would hope to expand, grow to other cities, other states, work with regional, large-scale recycling facilities, targeting the ones that have these large lithium-ion battery recycling capabilities in them specifically, and then we can expand from there.
Now should we do the one that was already answered?
Mm-hmm.
I would be very curious to hear more about the conversations you had about community participation, because without the actual getting the community involved in the recycling, you don't really have a business run. So Eleanor had just mentioned that, working with the community to get them to do this. So I was curious what you've looked at in terms of who would your possible community partners be, or how would you get your message out there? Like what is going to help you get people to participate in dropping off batteries so they're going out of their way? So what were your conversations around that?
So we talked about how we're all guilty of throwing out batteries. Before I came here, I even threw out a few myself. And so I think there needs to be a very broad scale, a movement to stress to people the importance of recycling batteries.
Also, the city government provides recycling facilities if you go to their website, so they can provide the public with information regarding battery recycling as well. And as well, we talked about potentially offering like rewards, but considering like a startup business, we haven't developed that far yet. So.
And then some of the things we mentioned is our focus is on education. We will be partnering with community centers, libraries, and such, and to work with them to be able to educate the people that attend there for battery services, and then working with places that are selling batteries that say, where if there's a shelf that has batteries that says these can be recycled at the Lion drop-off locations.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. And last but not least, Baby Beluga. No. You need the microphone? And you can't stand past the end of this. This plant, we can see, the window we cannot. Okay. Or about to not.
My forehead is illuminated. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Project Baby Beluga. Now, what is Baby Beluga? Baby Beluga is a small derivative of the orca. The orca is a large-scale carbon capture plant located right here in Iceland. Now, why did we choose Baby Beluga? Well, this idea originated here in the beautiful island of Iceland. We're surrounded by beautiful water, so we kind of wanted to keep it in the whale scheme. So touching back onto the orca captures carbon through a series of fans and filters. It then will grab that carbon dioxide and place it back into the earth where it's stored for thousands of years in a safe way.
So firstly, we would like to welcome the team, Baby Beluga. So I'm Amelia, this is Jay, this is Kim, and this is Martha. Nice to present to you all today.
All right, so Kim touched on the problem a little bit. We all know CO2 is a greenhouse gas. It's contributing to global warming, contributing to climate change. That's why we have these sustainability goals and a lot of other things that we've already talked about today. What our specific problem is that in the aviation industry alone, we produce 2.5% of global CO2 emissions.
that's a pretty large chunk. Transportation overall was listed at 24% in an earlier presentation, so we're 2.5 of all CO2 emissions specifically within airplanes and aircraft. What's our solution to this? We want to specifically target the CO2 emissions coming out of airplanes into the sky by placing carbon capture technology on airplanes to capture CO2 while they're flying, and that's specifically done through the use of an electrochemically driven CO2 separator. So we'll talk more about these devices, but basically the device would attach to the underbelly of the plane and capture CO2 in the atmosphere while the plane's in flight. It has a certain lifetime, and then you flush it out the CO2 and can use the CO2 for other purposes.
So now we're going to touch on the why, how and what of our project. So firstly, why are we doing this? We want to reduce the amount of CO2 that's produced in the atmosphere via aerospace industries. And in turn, that mitigates the effects of climate change. So how are we going to do this? So we're going to put this Baby Beluga device on the underbelly of a commercial aircraft. And what exactly is this device doing? This device is going to be sucking the CO2 out of the atmosphere and storing it to be used for other purposes later on. But essentially, the main reason behind this is to mitigate the effects of climate change caused by aerospace industries.
All right, the what. So we just touched on it a little bit, but this is the device I mentioned earlier, the electrochemically driven CO2 separator, but that's a lot of words, so what exactly does that mean? What it means is it's a mesh membrane over which you have a positively charged and a negatively charged end, so chemical reactions occur across the membrane. The cathodic end is where the anodic end is where CO2 is captured out of the atmosphere. It goes through a series of chemical reactions such that it becomes carbonate, bicarbonate, and then at the opposing end, you get CO2 again, which can be stored along with water. So that's the EDCS is its acronym. It's currently in development at the University of Delaware. They have tested one with 25 centimeters squared of active area, and across that active area, they've been able to find a 99% capture of the CO2 in the air running through it. And the device has a 450-hour lifetime before it needs to be taken apart. The stored CO2 needs to be flushed out, and then it can be reinstalled and used again. So our goal is to expand the device active area to 1 meter squared. On that meter squared, you can actually capture 15,700 grams of CO2 over one device lifetime.
So in regards to sustainable development goals, we did have ones that we wanted to prioritize and hit directly. But as a result of that, we indirectly hit other sustainable development goals as well, more the merrier. So that's always really good stuff. So we wanted to mitigate the effects of climate change, Action 13 there, via doing this project, which in turn is a responsible consumption. And as a result of both of these, this is mitigating the effects of climate change, which results in good health. That's with people. That can be good health of life below water, life on land, etc. And as well, our project provides good jobs and economic growth within a community, whether this be within research and development, manufacturing, etc. And also in more long-term visions for this device, which we're going to touch on later on. This also hits the criteria of sustainable cities and communities. It's all good stuff.
So as part of our sustainability complex, we recognise that the key customer would be in the aerospace industry, specifically commercial airlines. So we would like customers from all around the world, selling on a global scale, flying all around the world. On a national scale, we'll be developing this product at the University of Delaware, and also on a regional scale, we'll be manufacturing, but we do want to advance on this as demand grows.
Yeah, so to get into the business aspect of our project, what we need, since we mentioned already, this is still in the development, right? So we'll need investors to fund our project while it's still getting developed. As well, we will need to partner with companies that will allow us access to the equipment and materials that we'll need to make our device. Some things that we will be doing, we will be working with commercial airlines, as mentioned. We will also be doing research and development so that we can find the best ways to maybe make this device even larger, minimize the amount of materials used. So we will be doing research and development as well. We'll be manufacturing this device as well as selling it and installing it onto aircraft. Now, we will be partnering with industry partners such as BAE Systems, who have a huge goal of sustainability in their business, as well as a huge research partner, which will be the University of Delaware, as Martha mentioned earlier. They're the ones who invented this device, so we will be working alongside them as they have the patent for it as well.
So as part of our cost structure, as well as us, we will be funded by our partners to develop and manufacture the device. As we go along, we do want to increase the size of the extractor so that we can capture more CO2 eventually. And also, we have recognised that part of the cost is the extractors are fueled by hydrogen, so that is an added cost every time the life runs out. As said before, the product is an electrochemically driven CO2 separator, which will be installed directly in the bottom of the commercial aircraft to capture the CO2. We want to create industry partners throughout to help research and development for this product, and we'd like to advertise and propose to commercial airlines, which we think partners will help us with, as they will be in that business anyway. With our profit, we'd like to invest back into creating more devices, research and development for better technology and efficiency, and as we go along, advertisement for future partners to grow.
Right. So our customers will be commercial airlines such as United Airlines, American Airlines, and Lufthansa, who have goals to be net zero by 2050. We can also partner with Iceland Air, Emirates, and Southwest, who all have goals to reduce carbon emission. Now, we haven't delved too much into this, but essentially as our project, we would like to put this device on any form of transportation. So long-term goals in the future, we would like to put this on cars so that individuals can be driving around with a mini carbon capture right on top of their cars, or even be able to put maybe some larger scale ones on boats and ships around the world. Yeah. And so we will be making money by selling our electrochemically driven CO2 separator, obviously, as well as we will be making money by providing service to install and repair these devices. We will be accepting research donations, as we always want to improve our product, and we will be actually capturing the CO2 and reselling it to companies such as selling it to companies who make biofuel, or selling it to hospitals who need that CO2.
We do want to make a social impact by proving we are extracting and removing CO2 whilst in flight, and then we'd like to recycle it back into the aerospace industry, as Kim just said, for biofuel. We'd also like aerospace partners to reach their sustainability goals towards net zero, or even just approach them at this time.
Right, so just to give you a little bit more detail, because you saw the fancy device, so what exactly does it cost? How does it break down? You can see the cost breakdown for simply the materials used on the left-hand side of the screen. The big takeaway messages are for our 1 meter squared device, it's going to cost us in materials only, not in labor, $40.88 to produce. The CO2 captured per 1 meter squared of device active area is 15,700 grams, as we already talked about, and therefore, we propose a cost to our customer of $102 per device. This is a 60% markup from what it's costing us to produce in order to cover labor and also generate revenue. So what that means for our customers is that they will pay $6.5 for every kilogram of CO2 they take out of the atmosphere, which we think is a pretty good benefit in terms of working towards their sustainability goals. These are our technical references for the technical part of the presentation, and thank you. Are there any questions?
Wow, thank you for the really great presentation. My first question is, are there any airlines that best fit being your partners, and why would they be a good fit?
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier on one of the slides, there are a lot of companies who already have this goal of being net zero, such as United Airlines, American Airlines, and Lufthansa. I think across the world, a lot of airlines are just already trying to work to that goal of being net zero. Now we know that we cannot just ask everyone to stop flying planes. It is a great source. It's a great way of transportation. So we do understand that, but there are a lot of companies already who are trying to go towards that to reduce their carbon emissions.
And more the merrier. So if we could sell as much as we could, that would be great.
So your idea is to put these direct carbon capture devices on airplanes. Do you see any other methods for doing this? Like maybe at airports or things like this in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did talk about, there are different matrices in which you could do this. You could put, a giant orca-like thing at each airport, and then you would say you're capturing CO2 emissions, right? But I think our big thing within the sustainability goals was the responsible consumption. And so if we're going to be sending airplanes up in the air, let's put something on them so that they're being productive while they're in the air. Does that make sense?
And one thing that's great about the technology of this is that it does not have to be location specific. We're able to put this anywhere and it will do the same amount of capturing that carbon dioxide.
The more the merrier.
So, I don't know, maybe this is from the engineering part of the device. And like, how does it work? Is it like storing the CO2 in a high pressure water tank, or is it just atmospheric pressure?
So it stores the CO2 within the membrane cells, which is why the device lifetime is only 450 hours. So it stores it like within, I'm gonna point to things, in here. So you see this is your outside membrane, and then the storage is kind of in the space in between where the air is coming out and this. So yeah, did that answer the question, or did you want more detail? Okay.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up. You can just hold the microphone.
Okay.
It's all the same thing. So is this like attached to the engine or just on the side of the plane, or like where is it?
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, so that's the best aircraft image I have on here, sorry. So so it's going to be attached on the underbelly of the aircraft. Don't really want to put it anywhere near the engines or the intakes or anything like that. So the underbelly is the best place for it to go.
So is it like directly capturing the CO2 that the plane is actually emitting at the time? No. Or it's just in general
No,
flying through the air capturing
it's
CO2?
the airplane's releasing CO2. It's capturing CO2, not necessarily what the CO2 the aircraft is generating, but it is capturing CO2, not that specific CO2, if that makes sense. Oh, hello.
I can, which?
How would putting that there affect the aerodynamics?
Yeah. So basically, the underbelly of the plane is where it's least likely to affect the aerodynamics. So we will have to, redo calculations, make sure make sure weight's distributed, but by putting it on the underbelly, we minimize impacts to the aerodynamics.
And other question is, so the testing's operating in pretty tame environments. Are they able to withstand that much flow?
So the question was, are they going to be able to withstand the amount of flow that occurs on while flying through the air at very fast speed? So that is a really great question. The answer is early testing shows yes, but that's obviously an area we're going to have to increase testing in, do more efficiency, and also as we expand the surface area of it, we'll have a question as to whether we make it longer and narrow, constrict flow through it, or make it wider and have a wider flow field through it?
I think with the aerodynamics and the flow through, you could actually create extra engineering paneling to make it the air coming through slower so it doesn't break or anything like that. And with the aerodynamics, extra paneling, we're working with other partners as well, so they would help us to do that. You could actually maybe even build them into the bottom of the aircraft and then stuff like that. But that's later.
Yeah, so it sort of like sits flush the aircraft, so almost it becomes part of the airframe in a sense. So, like, they will be a lot smaller than the engine intakes. So, realistically, it won't give that much of an aerodynamic effect, which is great. So, any other questions?
This is really great and it's exciting. The focus that you all have is with the airline companies, and I would love to see it approached from getting the public involved and getting the public to take onus and responsibility of their carbon footprint. So how do you think that that might look if you would you maybe because I have a feeling if you charge the airlines, they're just going to pass it on to the consumer. So is it going to be a separate line item on their bill when they purchase their ticket, or how would you foresee the public being aware of what's going on and how that they can get involved? Okay, so this is where we get to be really, really honest with numbers. This device is great. It can do a lot. It can do a lot better than what we're doing now. But to be honest, it is still a relatively small fraction of CO2 that's in the atmosphere. So for one person, one average flight for one person, you would need like 6 of these 1 meter squared devices to capture all of the carbon just from the average flight of one person. Which means we need to educate the public on that. Again, we're not asking them to stop flying, but it could be a separate line item, or like, you could separately purchase travel insurance, right? You can separately purchase a CO2 or separately fund a CO2 device to make up for the carbon you're emitting, or partially of the carbon you're emitting.
And as well, obviously, we wanted to keep it quite narrowed. So we spoke about putting it in an aircraft, but as we mentioned before, could have loads of them just sat there at an airport. You can have them on trains. You could possibly develop it and have it in your car. You can have it just sat on top of buildings where there's high winds, etc. So overall, just making it public knowledge. When you're purchasing your tickets with that specific airline, by the way, thanks for purchasing this with us today. You're helping keeping a carbon neutral atmosphere because we have this cool device. So yeah, is there anything else? Go for it. I'll repeat you if you want.
I guess, well, like, I'm trying to think of public opinion surrounding, like, if they see it on a bill, like, this extra huge cost.
It's not going to be on their bill.
I was thinking about, like, public opinion in terms of how you think of, like, paying for shipping on, like, if you're ordering from Amazon, where it's
Yeah.
like, just $7, even though the thing you're buying is, however much. People might just become kind of not really content with that cost. Do you foresee any of these airlines kind of subsidizing that cost and putting their own profits into that instead of just pushing it onto the consumer?
Yeah, so it's not going to be on their bill. But they will feel quite content that they're flying with an airline that is doing this, contributing to mitigating the effects of climate change. As well as this, a lot of companies need to start doing something in regards to having net zero emissions by specific dates or reducing the amount of CO2 that they're releasing. All companies will need to be doing something at the moment, and I don't think any solutions of that will be free. So this is quite a cost-effective solution compared to other things that companies will need to do to achieve this goal by a specific date. So I think in general, all companies will be doing stuff at the moment, and this is a solution for them to buy.
Yeah, one thing to add on to that is governments are starting to regulate CO2 emissions from the aviation industry because they are decently high. So at some point, companies will probably be forced, either because all other aviation companies have done it or because the government literally mandates it. The government can also subsidize it, and the government does partially subsidize at least Southwest's plan right now.
Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you everyone for presenting, and congratulations on finishing your capstone projects. Woohoo! Good job. I just want to say how impressed I am with you guys and like how much you've accomplished in the past 8 days. We've definitely pushed you to your limits. We've taken, again, up mountains and rivers into the highlands, all while you were thinking about these sustainable solutions that you could create. I definitely want to encourage you guys to take these ideas, to run with them, to use the tools that we taught you here with the Golden Circle, the business model canvas, to create new solutions and come up with new ideas. And I really hope that you guys are some of the people that create solutions that we desperately need in our society. So I want to say thank you to all of you guys for doing such a great job. And to everyone watching. So, yeah, thank you. Oh, nice. Okay.